Wide out. Power. Wide out. Power. Shuff. Pull and pull, pull and pull, pull and pull. A.
This athlete certainly has started quickly here, Paula.
Yeah, he's attacking well up the hill as well. You can see him gritting his teeth, trying to keep his sights and his eyes fixed on, not on the top of the hill, but just on the heels of the British runner ahead of him, James St. Murray there to... Yeah, he looks okay. I think he's comfortable. He's actually extended that gap slightly over the Portuguese team behind him. Belgium now moving through it and starting to challenge the Spanish team.
Yeah, McMurray's
Well, good evening. Welcome to the Power Hour show. It's the show where we're talking running, the show where we're talking runners. And today it is no different in that I have a special guest. Now, everybody, we're going to be passing through a very difficult time, with this pandemic. It has affected every sphere of life. But because this is a runners show, we just wanted to bring you a story about, how people within the running community, the athletics community, are coping, with the situation. I have as my guest tonight, Dom. Welcome to the show, Dom.
Hi, Stan. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's brilliant to have you here. There's a part of your story that I like to share with our listeners, our viewers, and members from the running and athletics community, which is what most of us are facing. Are either facing every day or are in the battle with every day, which is how to cope, how we are coping with the pandemic, especially with the new variants. This second sort of wave has affected. I was talking to a friend, a colleague there, that the first time we used to talk about numbers, we would hear about numbers, about people affected. But this second time around, people are not talking about numbers. You're almost talking about someone else that somebody close or somebody within your networks has been affected by it. But that's the second part of the story when we get to it, because you obviously you had a very, very close encounter, shall I say, with the virus. But before we get there, who is Dom Ashwell? Could you just tell us, who are you?
Yeah, so I am a GB sprinter for the 60 and 100 meters. I'm 21 and I represented GB at the majority of junior competitions since I was 15, and I made my senior debut in 2019 at the European Team Champs.
Quite some pedigree there, Dom. We will get more into that, but let me just take you where did it all start? Because that's a fairly illustrious, albeit just within a starting career, but that journey, I know it. Where did it start yourself?
Like a lot of other athletes, I imagine it all started in probably a secondary school PE lesson or an after school club for a lot of them, and it's just where you're maybe playing the football or rugby, like a lot of the kids do, and then your teacher maybe pulls you aside and says to you, do you know what, you're actually quite quick, like, have you ever considered doing athletics? And then because that's not really something that's taught in school too often, you say, oh no, I've never really come across that or done it before, how do I get into that? So they can recommend a club to you. So they recommended my local to me. I'm from Watford, so it's Watford Harriers. So I went there, I gave it a go, and from there I just really enjoyed it. And, just kept with it ever since then.
Yeah. No, brilliant. It's a common story, with as an entry point into track and field. There's always some teacher out there, some PE teacher, that nosy PE teacher, so to speak, in terms of talent identification and giving you the pathway, to go to a local club where, and fair enough, there's more attention to your potential at a club than at the school, in a way, is it not?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the PE teacher has to teach a wide variety of sports to a lot of different students, so he's never going to be able to give you the attention or the care that you really need if you want to progress through the ranks. So, but pointing him into the right direction by going to a club or a qualified coach is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Tell me about your career as a junior. There is quite some debate out there, regarding, early developers and late developers, and those that start early, don't take it all the way to the top because they somehow expand themselves as juniors, and it's only those that start late that probably make it into the seniors. What was your experience as a junior yourself like?
So I was quite lucky in a way that I started in under 15, so I would have been 13 or 14 at the time, and I was lucky enough to just go from competition to competition and successfully win each one. So I just started off at the lower levels, like the YDLs or just the club meets on a Sunday morning, and I won a few of them. So then I got invited down to the counties, and then I won that onto English schools. And then once I got to English schools, I really started to take it seriously because I thought, like, wow, this is nationals at the time kind of thing. I thought, this is big, like, this is what I want to do. So in a sense, I was lucky with that, but I know a lot of athletes don't necessarily have the same pathway that I did, that theirs is a lot more challenging at an earlier age. So I really wouldn't worry about it too much because people progress and enter the elite level at different ages. Some are there from under 13 and stay in it. Some drop out. Some come in under 23s. Some even come in at seniors, and they can make a real career out of it. So yeah, I don't really think there's any merit to whether you're born with it or anything like that. I just think it's how much time and effort you dedicate to it, really.
I like that view there, that above everything else, it's what attention you give to whatever it is that you have been endowed with, from a mental or physical, advantages that you may have, unless you work on them, they in themselves would not necessarily translate into, an elite performer, in that light. Now, English schools is a big thing, in England, for every high school athletes. It's almost the place where you decide, right, maybe this is where, depending on performances and experiences there, that's where people make a decision, right, I'm going to take this a little bit more seriously and maybe start putting the roots in to become a professional athlete. What was the experience with English schools? What role did they play? When did you decide, right, track and field is going to be my profession?
I think the moment I decided is probably the minute I stepped in the stadium. Not even the minute I was about to compete or when I got on the start line. It was just a completely new experience. It had gone from being a Sunday morning and my dad driving me to the local track to getting a team bus with 40 like-minded people, 2-3 hours up the road to Birmingham, to have everyone congregate in one place to see who's the best of the best kind of thing. And from there, I was just kind of, yeah, this is it. Like, this is incredible, and it's at a very junior level. So what is it like when you get to the senior stage?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah. It is almost a watershed event for most athletes, and in that, like you put it, it opens the eyes into the possibilities. If I took my running, my jumping seriously, I could experience this a little bit more and more often. And you want to get involved with that. So what happened after that? Coming out of Birmingham, first English schools, what changed in your own, be it mindset or self-application? What changed?
Well, again, I was lucky in the sense that I was able to make the final, but I think it was either fourth or fifth. I can't quite remember which. I think is a perfect position to come when you're breaking onto the scene, because you haven't got a medal, but you're good enough to potentially get one. So it's driving you, and it kind of fuels that hunger in you to want to get the medal, knowing that you're not far off at all. So I came out fourth or fifth, like I said, missed out on a medal, and then I remember it to this day. I basically got in the car with mum and dad there, obviously beaming with pride and whatever. I'm sitting there and I'm trying to create a motivational playlist to get me psyched up for next year, because I was just thinking, what, if I go home and just bang out a year of solid work, I'm coming back here next year and I'm doing better.
Yeah. And did you follow up on that? And what event was it that you were, chasing this medal at?
This was the 100 meters. And I did follow it up the year after. I got second to the guy who won is actually my training partner now, so he still gives me a bit of stick for that to
this day. Right. Yeah. So there you are. You've won English schools. Well, you got a silver 100 meters, and everything else is pointing towards right. You could take this a little bit further and move on into the ranks. After winning English schools, silver medal, what else became your goal? What were your next goals within those junior ranks? How much of the junior world did you really know? And what was your experience in engaging it and interacting and discovering what goes on in the international junior world?
Well, to be honest, the pathway between English schools and kind of the GB junior level isn't really something that a lot of people know until you're at that level. So you don't really know the steps to take. But I went to Oaklands College in St Albans, which had a lot of other athletes that had gone through the same process that I wanted to go through. So luckily they were able to provide me with the steps and the information I needed.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Briefly tell us your experience as an international junior and your experiences there. What championships did you attend? From a school standpoint, English schools was the eye opener. What did the same? What had the same effect for you within the junior international circuit, if I may call it that?
Yes, it was my first GB competition. Actually, my second. Sorry, my first was GB in Manchester. But my first big competition was European Juniors in Italy in 2017, 16. One of the two. And again, it's just
Rosetta.
Yes, Rosetta.
Oh, we were in Rosetta then. Yeah, I was there with Desiree Henry. Yes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Go on.
But yeah, it was just the same experience as English schools. It was from the Sunday mornings to English schools. English schools are a real eye opener. And now it's exactly the same thing, but on another level. I've now gone from a 3-hour bus journey further up north in the country to a 3-hour plane journey to a country I've never been to before. With representing my country, wearing the full kit, everyone gives you a few looks and whatnot, and then you're with a whole team of people that have the same mindset and have gone through the same steps and process and that kind of thing to reach there. So it's quite a communal sense of this is it, where we needed to be. And from there, that was it. Just kept, in my mind, it just kept leveling up. So each stage, I went from club level to national level to international level, and I just wanted to know what was more after that.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Quite some journey there. Now, many junior athletes do struggle to make a transition, Dom, and I'm sure you would testify to, you know, a lot of your maybe even friends and maybe, you know, how did you, you know, what would you say, you know, was what helped you yourself make that transition? Because a lot do fall by the wayside, if I may call it that, if anything, but just from the amount of work that has got to be put in, you know, and others, you know, just find the work too much, and also others find it, you know, they've been winning as juniors, and then when they're during the transition period, the podium is not something that comes to you regularly, and others, you know, find that a bit, you know, deflating. What was your own experience? What was your own experience yourself, and how did you navigate that very, you know, slippery slope?
So transitioning from a junior to a senior was kind of seen as a limbo that no one's really sure how to get out of, because there's such a difference between an under 23 or a junior level and an actual senior, because it's just a completely different ball game. Everything's ramped up, the quality, the standards, and then as you're getting older, you have, you know, under 20s, it might have been a bit of fun. Now you're 21, 22, and you're thinking this is a real career that you need to pursue, but you're not funded, you're not sponsored. So how are you going to fit that around education, or how are you going to make ends meet? Do you need to get a job? If you get a job, how are you going to fit that around training? And there's just a lot of different things that I think just come from getting older and getting it and starting to take part in the real world, because you're getting to an age where maybe your parents aren't providing as much for you anymore, because you need to be more self-dependent. So you have to put more hours in elsewhere, which takes away from training, which I think is probably the biggest problem, and where people drop out because they just decide, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not getting the recognition I deserve, and I can't afford it anymore. Or I need to put my energy and effort into something else to set me up for that. But then there's also the mental side of it, which is something I've struggled with quite a bit, especially coming from being a top junior. So going to champs with the intentions of podium at least, to then going to British trials with just the goal of making the final. That's a big difference, I think. Especially when in the semis you're getting, you know, beaten. Then in the finals, your confidence is just completely knocked, because you're not really sure why you're there, when you're not going to medal, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's thanks for sharing that, and indeed you raised some very pertinent insights and, you know, situations that many juniors do face, and when that support is not coming, and it's not coming soon enough, you know, others throw in the towel and you know, find other routes, because let's face it, people would need to, you know, have food on the table. And it's also a period where people are transitioning, not just from juniors to seniors as athletes, but also transitioning from into adult world, and that brings with itself a different set of challenges that many juniors find. They have to make a choice: this or track and field, or I go out and deal with go ahead and do something else to cope with that. So which one would you say, in your transition phase, there, which one is it, would you say, this particular championship here did help me, or did help cement my decision to be a professional athlete? Everything else, the challenges that are coming are all part of it for me. And therefore, this is it. Like you said, my first English schools had a certain role that it played in your mindset. And the first junior international championship played a part. Which other championship for you made it that right? The seniors is for me. I'm going to pursue it.
2 years after at World Juniors, when I made the final, and I came 5th in the final. And then after that, that was my big break. So from then I started getting a bit of recognition from British Athletics. And then Nike decided to sign me. So they started to pay me and give me free kit. So obviously that was a real burden off my mind, because now I don't have to get a job. I don't have to pay for my kit anymore. So that's all provided. So I'm quite comfortable now. I can focus on the training. And to me, I just thought, this is it. This is people recognizing that I have a possibility of making it in this sport, and they want to support me now. Why would I not want to pursue that myself? So from there, I really just knuckled down and thought, this is what I want. This is what I want to be in a few years' time. I've got the money to focus on training. And from there, that's what I did.
Okay. Listen, Dom, when we come back, we will focus on a central message of our discussion today, which is coping with COVID, because you had an encounter with it, and we just like to hear that from an athlete's perspective, what that did and how it affected all this that you've just shared with us, the vision, the challenge, the aspirations, the training, and everything else. What is it exactly that you came across with that? And so when we come back, yes, Dom, your experience with COVID, how did that happen? And could you just share what you went through?
Yeah, so on January 2nd, I started to have symptoms, which were just, I came in from training one day and made my post-session meal, started eating it, couldn't taste anything, didn't really think anything of it. Settled down for dinner, started eating that, couldn't taste it again, so I just looked to my girlfriend who was with me. I said, I think we should go get tested. So we went and got tested, came up positive. So from there, obviously the 2-week isolation, which really threw a spanner in the works, because catching it just after New Year's meant that I'd missed a lot of training just because of the time when I caught it, because I stopped training on the 19th to take a week off for Christmas. So I had 1 week off then. I did 1 or 2 sessions between Christmas and New Year. So that was basically another week off. And then another 2 weeks quarantine basically put me at 4 weeks off, which, coming out of a really solid, difficult three-month training block, to then take a month off was not quite starting back at square one, but really regressed in my progression. And then I was trying to do the sessions myself, or what I could, but I was very self-conscious of going outside to train, because obviously I was very aware that there would be people around me. So I decided to either train like really early in the morning when no one would be out, or really early in the evening, really late in the evening, sorry, when no one would be out. But it did affect my chest a little bit, not so much when I was inactive, but especially during the sessions. I started to get really out of breath quite quickly by rep maybe 2, 5, 6 rep session. So half of them I wasn't even able to do. I then had no gym, and being a very power-based athlete, that was very detrimental. But then I also lost about 4 kg in the 2 weeks that I was isolating, and that left me very fatigued and just very run down.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that must have been must have been some experience there. Now that's a whole lot of weight loss there. What would you put that down to? Was it just lack of a change in your nutrition, or what would you put that loss of weight to?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because I was eating a lot more than I usually was, because one, I was just constantly hungry all the time. I'm not sure if that was just due to my body trying to beat the virus. And also the fact that I lost my taste and smell meant that anything I ate just wasn't satisfying me. So I just wanted to eat more and more to just get some kind of satisfaction. But then visibly, I wasn't noticing much of a difference, but the scales were drastically going down. And from there, it started to mentally affect me, because I was getting really worried that I was losing a lot of muscle mass. All the work I'd just done, I could just see going down and down as the scales went further down. So that was a big thing for me, because I wasn't sure what to do, because I couldn't really train properly, and I wasn't really sure what to eat, because nothing was working and I was still losing weight.
Quite a difficult situation, and in those circumstances, because but presumably you still you still had your support team around you, albeit maybe from with digital intervention. Is it where your coach, your SNC coach, or your nutrition, or your sports psychologist? What was the situation with that sort of team for you? What was happening there?
So it was a lot of communication, a lot of texting, FaceTime calling. They were trying to basically calm me down, or ease my mind that realistically in 2 weeks you can't lose as much muscle as you think. It's probably just a lot of water weight and whatnot. But with everything going on and only communicating to them over text and whatnot, I just wasn't really taking in what they were saying. If they were there in person with me, I'm sure I would have listened to them a lot more. But just being X miles away, I just didn't want to believe them. So they were trying to give me some they were trying to write programs that I could do body weight and whatnot, and I just wasn't having it. I don't know why. I just lacked the motivation or the intent to want to do it. I just kind of accepted defeat and then thought I'd work back on it when I got to training.
Would you say that would be a situation that, you know, many other athletes would find themselves, not necessarily because they, you know, they have suffered COVID, but the fact that the medium of interaction with their support team is not physical anymore? It's all digital, it's all, you know, online, and different type of athletes might find that as difficult because they don't learn that way. They learn, you know, in a different way, where they learn from a very physical, you know, sort of presence. Would you say that is the case with, you know, with the other athletes?
Yes, definitely. Because I know a lot of athletes take comfort in being in personal connection to either their coach or support team or whatever. And a lot of athletes do it for the social aspect. So if you're training by yourself constantly, or you're not able to get in contact with maybe your training partners, that's definitely going to hinder motivation. You're probably not going to train as well, just because I find, well, from my personal experience, it is very difficult to reach the same level of intensity yourself as when you have other people with you. And it's just very unmotivating to have someone communicate with you over the phone, especially when you can't see what kind of emotions they're putting into the messages. You can often misread it or misinterpret it, and from then maybe it's damaging your relationship, especially not speaking to anyone else. And it's just you and your own goals and whatnot, and you can't really communicate with the coach how you want to. It's just, it's just not great.
Yeah, absolutely so. Absolutely so. Athletes are very social animals, aren't they? And the whole, you know, the whole practice of athletics is a very social, you know, engagement. And you know, to not be able to experience that social side of that engagement, you know, can be daunting and challenging, you know, to, you know, even the best of us in that light. And like you hinted there, it does also affect the mental side of the athletes. How much do you think that, in your own experience and within hearing other athletes, how much of a, you know, of a mental challenge is this lack of social capital or social engagement, you know, for most athletes?
That is probably the biggest factor that is going to affect people's training. Sorry, because from my personal experience, and I know a lot of other people feel the same, training isn't the most enjoyable, even at the best of times. But what really gets me through it is, you know, the 5 or 6 other athletes that are really carrying me through the day, helping me, you know, making me laugh, running the sessions with me. And then you've got my physio, who's giving me either like advice, physical treatment, or just, you know, having banter with me, basically. So that really motivates me during the session. And then I can understand why a lot of people would be disheartened not being able to communicate, not being able to socially be with anyone.
Yeah. You touched there on physio, you know, your physio, you know, so, you know, training, you know, and seniors athletics, professional athletics, the medical side is a big component, because you want to take care of the machine, as I call it, the body itself, and you want regular, you know, attention to it through your physios, through other other experts within that health, that health community. What is your experience, with this lockdown and the training, vis-a-vis training as well? How much of that has been affected, or the lack of it, or with it, or when you get it through digital means? What is your experience with it?
It's really taught me a lesson, to be honest, because before I came into the system I'm in now, or the training group I'm in now, I was very independent with my self-management, my foam rolling, yoga, mobility work, all of that. And then once I started getting a physio, I became very lackluster with it and very reliant on them. And now that that's been taken away from me again, I'm finding that I'm very unmotivated to do any self-management, and I'm getting a lot more niggles. I'm finding training is a little bit harder. My recovery is not as good, and it's making training a lot harder. And I wish, well, having a physio on hand so often is both a blessing and a curse, because I mean, you're able to get as treatment whenever you need, if you need, but you also become very reliant on it, and you tend to see the physio too much for things you don't need. And now your body's reliant on it, and mentally I'm reliant on it because I don't feel like I can do as good a job myself as a qualified physio.
Yeah. That's a very, 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 very valuable point you raised there, Dom. Very, very valuable point. And you would wish, there's a way that kind of appreciation or awareness can be brought to athletes a lot earlier, because yes, that relationship there, necessary and relevant as it is, can actually do the opposite in terms of what you have just stated there, dependency. So the body has got its own mechanism of biofeedback. The body can by and large sort out some of the niggles that the body goes through. It's made that way as a machine, as a machine complete. And but sometimes the intervention from the physios may come too soon, too frequent, and then the body sort of gives up on that side and relies on the external intervention that comes from those medical professionals. And I know mentally that also, as you point out there, it can be something that people start to depend on too much, just from a mental point of view. If I haven't seen a physio, maybe I'm not going to train properly, or I'm not going to compete properly, compete at my best because of that dependence there. But then, hey presto, here is COVID and the restrictions, and we have to go back into our own individual resources, to start, learning or getting back all those skills that we probably knew but had, given up on. What's your take on that?
Yeah, definitely. If there's one thing or one piece of advice I could give to any athlete, is probably to find a balance between physio and self-management. Don't go 100% self-management or 100% physio. Just try and find a balance that works for you in between. Because I was under the impression that when you got to senior level, you'd have your physio everywhere you go. But that's not the reality of it, because you'd have to fund the physio yourself when you go to these foreign places to race. And that is expensive. If you're flying out to, let's say, the Eugene Diamond League, you're having to pay for your physio's flight, to put them up in a hotel, to eat, all their expenses paid for, plus their manual labour charge, I guess. It's just not a viable option. So when you've gone from seeing a physio maybe 5 days a week, for say, and then on the 6th and 7th day you're racing, but your physio is not there, what do you do then?
Yeah.
You just don't remember how to get by yourself, even though you've done it for all those years before. So I just say, even if you have a physio, or maybe you just self-manage a lot, I just say keep on top of it. Even if your body's okay, maybe just do a little bit here and there, just to kind of keep those fundamental skills with you.
Yeah. Oh no, brilliant. Dom, this is wonderful. This is wonderful, and time is ticking away. But listen, before we go, I would like to hear about the rest of the plan. We don't know when the lockdown is going to be lifted. What's the plan? What's the plan for you? What's left of the season for the season? There's Tokyo 2020, yes, in 2021, and all the other and all the other championships, that were on your plan, and what's happening with that relative to the weight loss that you've suffered, and of course the COVID itself that you suffered. What's happening with that? When we come back, that's what we will be looking at. For many athletes and coaches, last season was a write-off. This season is also we don't know how much you can get out of it. Well, if we decide to go back into whenever it is, then maybe it is essentially a training season to prepare for next season. What's Dom's picture looking like for the season itself? When things return to whatever normal looks like when they return to?
The first goal for indoors, although we're not really sure what's happening with that yet, is European indoors. I understand they say they're taking a team, but there's only one competition so far which you can qualify for. So having COVID early January, and then finishing my isolation around like January 15th would only give me a month's worth of training to compete at the trials on the 21st of February. So we're not sure about that. But if we can get in shape, then hopefully European indoors. But even if that goes ahead, that will just be experience more than anything, because the real goal for the year is the Olympics. I'm not looking to go for the individual 100 meters because I don't think that is a stage at my career that I'm ready for yet. But I'd love to go for the 4x1 relay to get some experience and to really put myself out there.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's brilliant. And all things being possible, what would training look like whenever that resumes? And what is it, for people out there that say, okay, so what does a GB sprinter do anyway? What is their week like? How do they, these guys, what they say about sprinters? They are the people that hang around athletes, because other athletes are seen running around. You guys just seem to be sitting around.
Yeah, you could call sprinters the laziest of us, laziest athletes of the world. But to be honest, our sessions are no different from a club session, really. We just do it with a bit more intensity. The times are a little bit quicker. But the typical training week would be Monday, we do a big speed session. So, your blocks, your flying 90s, that kind of thing. And then straight after that, we gym. So we gym 4 times a week and we track 4 days a week. So Tuesday is usually a low level running session, so maybe some back-to-back hundreds, that kind of session, and then gym again. Monday we do lower body, Tuesday upper body, Wednesday is completely off, Thursday is another big speed session, and then gym again after, and Friday is a relaxed what does he call them? Like the 250, 300 sessions, those kind of ones. Followed by gym, and then usually stretching, yoga, that self-management to finish off the week. But our lower body gym and upper body gym is often comprised of compound movements rather than, your bicep curls, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the weekend off to recover for Monday and do it all over again.
Well, yeah. That's brilliant. I tell you what, Dom, you've been superb, been wonderful, and you've been very generous, with sharing your experiences, personal experiences. And I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. And I wish you all the best and a complete recovery. And hope you regain those lost weight, whether it was water or muscle mass. Get it back, and all the best with the preparations for Tokyo 2021 and your desire to make that relay team for experience's sake.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Yeah. Super duper, man. Well done. Well done. Right. That's on that note, it is good night from me, from Dom. It's been a pleasure sharing with you once again.